it's focused on the present, whereas the one next one to the left is focused on the past, and then the one to the right is focused on the future.
Oh, interesting.
So like 6124 is like very much in the present.
Cool.
Of like.
But I also thought for the 6124, it's like like when I look at the line, I'm like anxiety. It's like the looping thoughts of like.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you get that, or is that
looping? Oh
like
yeah.
Looper. I'm a
yeah,
looper.
it's the looping. It's
I'm
the
like,
looping
shut the fuck up.
gate.
Like,
Yeah.
just stop. As soon as I lay down, it's like, and I was like, I haven't thought about you all day.
Yeah.
All day. It's because I've been doing things all day. I'm like, I'm doing this. Present things. Present.
Only people with 24 get songs stuck in their head. So
really?
yeah,
it's
and so you know a gate placement. They figured
like my Disney songs come out so hard.
They figured out that a gate placement is like 1 in 3 people. So you could say that 1 in 3 people have songs stuck in their head regularly, but then everyone else that happens to is through proximity to someone with 24. You know, so other people get songs stuck in their heads when they're in aura with us.
I get obsessed with one song for a very long time too.
Oh really? Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if that.
I sometimes.
I wish that I could just. I've said this multiple times. Like, if I could just dump all of my song knowledge, like the song lyrics in my head, then I would be like such a more intelligent person. Like,
really, pretty intelligent.
I would be able to retain so much more. Like,
but I can't remember. I can't remember any of the lyrics. Actually, I remember fragments of some songs, and then I'll mash them together with other fragments of another song. And people are like, "Is that even a song?" I was like, "I don't know."
That's
it's
very
in
real.
my head.
Yeah.
Well,
I was like, they're beating the same.
It's not just empty information. It seems to attach itself to mutation. Have you had the experience where the song in your head is so it's so persistent that it just like it literally keeps you up at night? And to me, you've never had that?
No, thoughts, yeah, but not.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's thoughts or whatever. I mean, I've had it at a few pivotal moments in life when there's a lot of transition going on. And so I'm starting to realize that it, like, because every individual channel mutates, basically.
Do they just sing our theme of, like, the heart and the pain?
Huh?
Is it just, like, theme songs of, like the one sentence you remember is, like, actually the theme of, like, what your life is going through? And
yeah,
it's, like, you're
sometimes
literally,
it is relevant,
say,
yeah.
for me, when I say it out loud, it's like,
I've heard that,
makes
yeah.
total sense, yeah. Like, just part of a song, like, being not the entire song. And then I've had this happen too, where, like, I think a song's about something, and then, like, you hear the artist talk about the song, and it's, like, totally different. And I'm like, oh, no, I like my version better.
You're like, why did you have to tell me that?
Yeah, don't tell me that. Like, I like my interpretation better. Like, yeah.
This is a really basic interpretation of, like, the song repeating. It was, like, whenever I'd go paddle boarding in Oregon, and we go around a river bend, like, just round the river bend. And then the girl I was always with was just like, just round the river bend. And she does not have the 2461. She's just like, what are you doing? Like, I influence her.
Yeah, totally.
That's interesting. That makes more sense, obviously, because I'm physically going around something, but that was, like, the most, like, I need to stop. Like, something is wrong.
I've had songs stuck in my head before, and I have to, like, listen to other songs, like, just pick another song that's very different from that one and, like, listen to it repeatedly just to get that one out of my head. And then as soon as I stop, sometimes it's like, oh, it's back again, and I'm just like, oh, like, get out of my head already.
But you can actually remember, like, can you remember the entire song and the lyrics in it?
Sometimes it feels unconscious. Sometimes I'm doing it and I don't even know I'm doing it, and it's like, but it's there. I feel like I'm not, like, consciously being like if you ask me right now.
I know I'm gonna sit right here. I'm gonna kind of put this microphone in the middle so that hopefully it'll pick up enough. And then Mike has another one. And we're just about to start. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This is just a little bit of a pre-show talk. We have a lot of fun questions today we're going to be answering.
Are you sitting in that chair?
Yeah,
some fun co-hosts. No, I'm sitting kind of down here.
Okay. I was gonna.
Well, no, you want me to move it so it doesn't.
No. I was just thinking that
You just want you to be comfortable.
it blocks, like, there's some sound blockage happening, and I was thinking if there's nothing in that trash can that's right there, you could flip that over, and then it wouldn't be blocking. You wouldn't have the obstruction.
It's really more about proximity. People are just going to have to kind of pass it because it's actually much better to talk like this. So I'll just kind of pass it when we talk.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately.
That's okay.
Let's see if anyone's tuned in on YouTube.
What does this say?
I have no idea. It kind of looks like deluge, deluche,
Cool.
or love, It's like DELOVUCE. It just kind of came out in my hand.
You freestyled?
I freestyled.
Interesting.
But did your dreams start, like, you said your dreams came back again? Like, I had, like, the 3 days before the Aries moon was, like, holy shit. Like, it was, like, super intense. Like,
yeah. Well, I also went camping this last weekend in the Gilas.
oh,
And
nice.
it was, like, right under the full moon, no tent, nothing, under the stars, everything. So I don't know if that's, like, had anything to do with it.
Maybe you were getting, like, more
Or
down
just,
the...
like, yeah. It was
more
very...
neutrino blasting.
very insightful. Then yesterday I heard, are we starting this? I was on a podcast, or I was not on a podcast. I was listening to a podcast and she was talking about dreams and how she can go to bed at night and have the intention of a question of a person, and she can actually use the guides, her own personal guides, and talk to the person's spirit guides and like get the information from the spirit guides, and then like she'll wake up and be like, I have the message down here. Like we'll hop on a call and we'll talk about it. And she was like, well, also you can set an intention before you go to bed, or like if you're trying to like change a story or like something subconscious that you have, then you can go to bed with like a feeling intention. So I was like, I feel abundant and like I surrender, or something about like surrendering and like abundance or something.
Okay.
And I went to bed. The dream was so like intense, but like so eye-opening too. I was like, oh,
Someone said
I have to be vulnerable too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to be vulnerable too.
Hey, shout out, Robert. We will be starting very shortly. And we're going to turn the video on and be answering questions from the audience as well. So if you have any human design questions, please jump in.
You should text Anastasia.
Oh, okay.
She would love this. She came for the conference. She's really funny. But
I gotta do an actual phone.
but she had thought
You know it's live right now.
oh
Is the camera on?
No, not yet.
What about this?
she just really loved Jonah's style of his videos, but she thought it was kind of like she didn't realize Jonah was just like
That right? That he's just like that?
Yeah.
That's funny. That's pretty good.
Like performing.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's cool.
That's funny. Oh wow.
he's real.
That's Jonah. Yeah.
You know, that's not the tone of like me living it. I was like, is this how everyone is here? This is the first person I met.
It's weird. There was this comedian who was like, I saw the drag show on Saturday and they were like,
Where's the drag show in Santa Fe?
there was on Saturday, yeah, it was like a benefit, like a one-time thing, but
You're
it was
so
like,
like
they were talking about the woo of Santa Fe and like how she like came here and she was talking about dating and like
It's awful.
just like how much woo is out there like in Santa Fe and like her experiences with it, and she's like, I'm still wearing my scarf, I'm woo enough to be here, like and like talking about people with crystals in their hair and all kinds of stuff. It was really fun because she was coming from Washington DC to Santa Fe, so that's like,
Whoa.
yeah, that's like major
That's
culture shock. Yeah, she was great. Her name was Porter.
We were talking with James Alexander about how moving west is moving towards right variable. So anytime someone from the East Coast comes in this direction, they get a little bit of that culture shock, the hippie culture shock.
land of manana.
Yeah.
All right, you're live from the land of Manana here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. State of Human Design, Monday, October 25th, 2021. So Dune. Who's seen Dune? Who's seen it?
That sounds pretty right variable.
But you haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Only previews.
Still trying to
Okay.
get through the
I saw the Jodorowsky documentary and the David Lynch one.
You
And I read the book. It was the only sci-fi
Damn.
book I read. But all these things years apart. I didn't know what to do with it. I felt like I didn't build up the fluency to read a sci-fi book before trying to read it.
The microphones are a little too quiet. Please, anyone at home, tell us how the volume is. I might have to put it through a couple little effects here. But you read, so you're actually more in the reader camp.
Huh?
You're in the reader camp.
I tried to be in the reader camp, but I couldn't. But I couldn't read it because I don't know how to read sci-fi, so I couldn't keep track of everything they were saying.
This is actually very true. I'm with you on that.
Because they're always like Stilgar, Duncan, all this funky stuff going on.
Skilgard and
guilds.
Duncan. It's the names. It's the words. There's there are.
There's a lot
It's
of
frustrating to say that sometimes I don't know how to pronounce their names too. Even though I can
Yeah.
just like make it up, I'm like I really want to know what it actually is.
Yeah, I just make it up.
nice.
But it irritates me still.
I'm almost done reading it. So why I decided to read it was because I'd heard about this book and it's Dune, and I was trying to read a lot of like the quintessential books, like I read anyways, there was just different ones, and I met this guy here, and it was through like an online dating thing, and he wrote his entrance paper on Dune to get into St. John's.
Cool.
So like, and I was like, whoa, and he was like getting so into it and everything, and I was like, I've never read it, and he's like, oh my god, you have to, there's so much going on, and like I was like, okay, like adding it to my list. So yeah, and I'm almost done with it. Like I have like 100, 150 pages left. So I've not seen the movie, and I will not see the movie until I finish the book.
Whoa. Okay.
So actively reading it right now.
So the book came out in 1965. First one anyway. The first one 1965, and it really is one of the first sci-fi. The 60s. When you really pinpoint the 60s, that's when we entered into the first line of the cross of planning as our global cycle. And so Ra was born in 1949. He reported not really feeling like he was of the world until 1961. He's 12 years old, because that's when the global cycle changed and shifted. He's a first line. He's a 5-1, and the global cycle changed to first lines. Like I have 3 first lines, 3 all in gate 9, which is actually the key to behavior right now as part of this global cycle. So just as a kind of interesting point, it's kind of like, as we came to the end, like from 1961 to 2027, like this is the time period where 61-1 is a global key right now. It's the key to the lock of 13, which is how we understand history and how we understand ourselves. So occult knowledge and inner truth, because Pluto entered into that line. I forget exactly when, but there's some interesting synchronicities where Pluto wasn't in the 90s actually that Pluto entered
into 61.
61-1.
Really? Wow, that's a very slow. I don't think so, because it's in 61 currently.
Oh, it's in 61 now. So
Yeah.
so maybe this is really just what Ra kind of talked about, of being the time then. So this time then, I guess, is the very end of where the global cycle being 61-1. I guess it's really now then, which makes it even a little more interesting. In that this is the closing of the door. These last 6 years count down to 2027. Not to be too doomsday about it all. So Halloween. So okay. Well, my thoughts on Dune were just
Have you read it?
Oh no, I haven't. No, I did try when I was younger. I read a lot of sci-fi. You know who loves sci-fi is going to be here next week. Maybe he can be on next week's episode if we decide to do this again. If we like it, will be Von Paul, the artist. Von Paul artist on Instagram. Yeah, he absolutely is, and he might have read Dune because he's read so much sci-fi. It wouldn't surprise me. He loves to read, and he's a big reader. So, my take on Dune was it is a little bit of a prefiguration of a post-apocalyptic sci-fi world, and that's fresh compared to earlier sci-fi from the 20s, 30s, and so on, where it was hesitant about the onrush of machines, and it was critical of the modern person and how busy they were, and it was critical in all these ways, but it wasn't still yet fully post-apocalyptic in the way that you get starting in the 60s. And then, things like Watchmen in the 80s and so, there's so much post-apocalyptic literature, but it all kind of starts in this last time, because this is the time of let's see the truth of it, and it's a time where we can all kind of imagine different post-apocalyptic scenarios playing out and how they might play out with different people. And this is one where there are noble people. It's almost a return to kind of feudalism, where there are noble families and they do have honor and they are, but it's yet, and they use swords and so on. It's very kind of like anachronistic, almost cyclic time. But
it definitely has that like journey from boyhood to manhood, kind of like questioning where you came from, building a new life, and like the reluctancy to do that, and what you can learn from the other and things. And so, but a lot of that does feel like a very old story, like the young boy and losing his father and the hiding
stuff.
away, like the hero journey.
That's the seven-sinner stuff. Heroes, seven-sinner.
It's a very hero journey.
But it's also 41, 30, 36, 35. That's hero's journey. And what's interesting is, there probably are 9-centered versions of the hero's journey, where the hero learns to communicate and learns to, for instance, Finn and Jake, I always think of Adventure Time as having a great teaching tool for kids, showing them not just boring moralizing, but like legitimately intelligent, kind of proto-adult handling of difficult situations. And that's the kind of thing that you can get there. But
I feel like it's very 9-centered.
Dune?
No, just like the hero's journey stuff.
Well,
like in the sense that, like, similar to like Jung too, is like, going to that place where you're hitting rock bottom and you have to, face your demons, fate, or like bring your shadow to the surface. And I don't think that's a 7-cent. I mean, strictly a 7-centered thing. I think there's,
Yeah, there's different versions. It's the same kind of fundamental. Yeah, it does raise some interesting questions about that human experience away and what it was before 1781. And that would be an interesting form of research. All you really have to do is look at the kind of break down the kind of fundamentals of what it's all about. But to me, the fundamental movement 41, 30, 36, 35, that is what it is to be us. Yeah, even Homo transitus. Sure, like we are the interstitial human before the sort of new rave human that really takes full advantage of the 9-centered vehicle, which it can only do when the solar plexus mutation completes. We are just kind of in the middle of this. And so we're not the end of the road, but what we're also not interested in being. It's not like the new thing is an improvement from our perspective. Like, we are the ones that get to be individuals and get to be alive, get to be awake, and it's actually the best thing we could be. It's kind of amazing to have this gift. So it's definitely not, it's not completely cut and dry, whether, there's a big trope in postmodern philosophy to attack hero's journey stuff and to attack Jungian men's groups and stuff, and I see why, because we were talking about this earlier. There are 16 personality crystal bundles, and men's groups are probably like one of those personality crystal bundles, and they're like, this is the way. Just like some people are like, compassion is the way, and some people are like, non-attachment is the way, and some people are like, and there's all different ones. And if you look at what the 16 Godheads are, you know what mine is? Jesus. You know what Jesus' way is? Jesus' way is non-competitive or non-threatening competition. It's fine to be competitive. It's fine to fight. It's fine to have as much competition as we want, but let's not have physical violence. It's actually the practice of non-violence as a fundamental premise. But I will allow tremendous discourse or discursive violence, or whatever you want to call it. But Jesus is the point in the cycle that says, I'm not going to throw the stone. It's the fundamental non-violent act of just turning the other cheek. And saying, I'm not going to use violence, I'm going to use words. And this is very 9-centered. You can see that there's 7-centered, 9-centered readings of it. Just like hero's journey stuff, I think very 7-centered readings of it we see in action movies where James Bond with his Batman's Dark Knight of the Soul is literally being thrown in a pit in Batman 3, where he's like stuck in the pit and he can't get out, and it's like years in the pit. And it's like, and that's fine. That's great. These myths capture our kind of imagination. They capture us, But what I'm trying to say is these myths are already written in the stars, so to speak, as the 16 godheads. And just like Jung said, don't be a plaything for, the archetypes to just possess you. It's like, similarly, that's what human design is about, is sort of disconnecting from the power that we get from embodying these not self archetypes. Because anywhere you're not self and you're living it out, you're actually embodying a sort of transpersonal, collective image. And so I'll just give an example. There are certain men and certain women who Jung would call anima women and animus men, where they're getting like a certain extra benefit in terms of power, sex appeal, preferential treatment, whatever, through using their identification. Like, for instance, an anima woman would be acting especially waif-like and saying, I don't know how to do it, just to try to get someone to do it. She knows exactly how to do it. She just, and like, the same thing for men who would be trying to do the kind of tough guy thing and close off and show the stoicism. And you see these people where what they've actually done is they've identified with a certain archetype, and they're really living out the archetype. And that is what most of the world is. I mean, the other thing is, I don't want to be critical of that, because we all do it. We gain a tremendous enjoyment from being the hero, from being the star, from being the center of attention, from being the whatever it is, depending on how your various configuration. But why do we play different video games where we have superpowers? We get to be the person with these superpowers. I mean, it's very appealing for the minds to get to experience all the things we can't do. Birds can fly. We want to fly. We want to be able to do that. There's nothing wrong with riding the waves of it. Human design is just there to tell you what's you and what's not you, because so many people end up chasing it, and they're chasing a phantom. Whereas if you just wait for it to come to you, your lack of definition, any openness and emptiness in your chart is going to be an open area where people who have definition there or activation there will just naturally want to fill that void. And they, if you have 22, you'll naturally draw out 12s to talk to you. And if you have, and so on, like, you're going to just draw out these qualities from others. But it's only when trying to chase it. So it is interesting how there is, and I would say the 7 center is the one that we had to chase it, because that was where the imperative was, prove that you can chase it faster and better than anyone else has ever chased it before.
Or maybe 7th center is the external, and 9th centered would be more internal.
Exactly, as we turn to the rave and so on. I mean, there's a whole theme where you could kind of draw a line down the middle, where the whole left side is what we would call variously left variable, 7-centered, historical past,
Spleen?
Logical, spleen, exactly.
Yeah.
There's you could make like a whole list of like at each level what that past orientation is. And then on the future orientation, we have right variable, we have solar plexus binary, and so on. And of course, there's the ajna in the middle.
So why do you also want to break your covenant with archetypes that are part of your definition?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, the archetype of 2946, I don't know if that is an archetype. It's a life force energy.
Right,
it's
Jesus.
Well, yeah, but that's what he's saying is in my definition, because my 46, 25, I mean, it's part of it acts as part of my definition. You're right.
Oh, but I just meant the godheads though too.
I mean, the breaking of the covenant, what Ra means by breaking the covenant is don't just live out. He's talking specifically about the personality sun, really. So my incarnation cross is not even really the covenant with my God. My God is who I'm trying to emulate, which is my task is to do my best job of being a 46-5. And 46 happens to be in this, what he has termed Jesus. Now, there's a lot of other Jesus figures. You don't have to use Jesus. And he invites people to try to find their own variations, because each Godhead actually is 4 gates. And he says, why don't you try doing the different variations as the different 4 gates? Like 4 different versions of Jesus. Like maybe you find some alternate kind of Jesus of this, Jesus of that, that people were into. And those are actually the different aspects of those 4 gates taken together. I don't have the next 3 gates. It's 48 and 21. I don't have this stuff, but I do have 46. I am 46 in the sense that my mind is more convinced, or my personality is even more convinced, and in some sense, my personality is taking the form of this 46-5. So I'm doing the best job I can to be a 46-5. I know some other 46-5s. There's a Russian human design guy, Yuri, and this is just how the world works. That makes doubles, where this Russian human design guy is saying all sorts of wrong information, and maybe this will be a good segue.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, check this out. You're gonna.
Cool.
Oh my god.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll leave this on for just a little bit. So, we got the hot topic. We're on before we got the hot topic. What's that? Oh yeah, let's check our YouTube too. But anyway, Yuri, Robert,
I think so, yeah, we're on the thing.
Kwisitz Haderach. I think it was Neptune Uranus. Mystical Way is sort of the hero's journey, but it's going away. It absolutely is going away. It is. You're absolutely right. It's the mystical door. The mystical way is closing, and this is in the rave cosmology materials that Ra teaches, and it's just. It actually, that was one of the times in my human design journey that I actually legitimately cried and felt a deep sadness, because I just immediately knew how true it was that mysticism was going away, and that one of the deeper meanings of no choice is not some sort of abstract philosophical determinism argument, but is actually that you are the one that it's all for. And in some sense, you keep living your life for other people thinking that it's all for them to get to experience the ultimate thing, but you actually get to experience the ultimate door opening, the ultimate mysticism that future generations aren't going to give a crap about. And it's heartbreaking and beautiful to kind of have that realization that there is a sort of fundamental but yeah, okay, well, just really quick, we'll get into let's see. So we'll get into what's going on in just a second.
The human experiential way already started dissolving due to an ingress of Neptune, right? There's a sort of pre-2027 phasing out of that. So we've already begun the dissolving of interest in it, technically. The time of humanity has already peaked. Well, part of that was the thing he was talking about, the disclosure element of the Gate 61, both Pluto in that gate now, and then that being one of the keys for the cross of planning.
I also think there is an aspect of it that is being homogenized.
Totally.
Mysticism. I think there's an aspect that's been homogenized. You can see it clear as day in astrology. It's watered down. It's, just focusing on certain aspects of things. But not to say I don't like astrology. I think it's really, there's a lot to it. And I like the whole system together. But anyway, I think the watering down of concepts like that is taken away from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but how are you supposed to integrate someone into astrology in that amount of depth right from the beginning, right?
Well, I really think it's the person's desire, commitment to dive into it or not. If they just want to stay at that surface level of. We see it in HD groups too. There's so much depth, and I just think that not everyone's gonna dive deep, and the surface level homogenization of the information is kind of taken away from the beauty in my mind.
Yeah, I just also feel there's a lot of people who haven't experienced a certain amount of depth yet, so I think that there has to be a level of integration of the basics to something more depth.
Dedication to the exploration.
But looking at design, not everyone has the gates, channels, centers to go deep. They don't have it, so it makes sense that it should be available for different levels for different people. Someone like me who's a deep diver, I will go deep, whereas someone else is not concerned with that. Someone who has more tribal stuff is more concerned about collective. That's not.
I actually want to speak to that point, which is highly recommend reading the Incarnation Crosses by Profile materials, which Ra taught over multiple years, something like 1,400 pages of transcribed materials. And what he does is he goes through the 768 unique variations of profile and incarnation cross. That's 12 profiles for every gate. There's 64 gates, and for each gate they have the 1 3, 1 4, 2 4, 2 5, 3 5, 3 6, and so on. So there's 12 for each, and that's what we were actually reading from earlier. And you can see that it's what it tells me. Going back to the no choice thing, is it makes me so happy for the people I do have in my life, because Freud said something really profound, and I think it's very similar to the kind of realization you have when you're reading the incarnation crosses. Freud said people tend to think of themselves as being somewhat neutral, just in the middle, not too good, not too bad, trying their best, so on. They all put themselves in this exact thing. They're actually capable of far greater and far more terrible things than they can imagine. And so people are capable of doing things that they cannot allow into their imagination of themselves because of this neutralizing effect. When you read through this Incarnation Cross book, you have 768 humans, slices of humanity. It's like people of New York. It's like it's humans of New York, like Instagram, but like Ra's version of it going through like these are the flat earthers. I mean, it's like watching All Gas No Brakes. If you haven't seen All Gas No Brakes, it's a fantastic YouTube. All Gas No Brakes is an incredible little slice of humanity. And
what's the name of the book or thing?
Yeah, definitely people who have Gate 15 need to do it.
YouTube.
I have Gate 15.
Then you got to watch All Gas No Brakes because it's all about the extremes of
that's a
humanity.
good
It's going to
point. That's
furry
very Gate
conventions.
15.
It's furry for people who are into furry sex. It's people who are into all sorts of crazy stuff. People who are into flat Earth. It's people.
We went to a Donald Trump Jr. book signing.
Yeah, they were I know, and they just like interview people and talk to people.
It's not defined there. My center's not defined there.
It's so fun. No. The 15 is just the love of humanity. It's just so you will just love it because.
Oh wait, no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It's defined. I was thinking
that's
maybe
your-
5.
Okay. So this.
I was like, I know. I was like, no, I am. Like,
Okay, so we're still on the hot topic though. I don't want to get off topic and go too far afield.
Yeah, what's the hot topic?
So the hot topipic is I'm going to mention it because I just went to the human design body graph mechanics. We start with Yeskov Yuri. I'm actually okay with him now. We're going to start with him. We'll move on. But the hot topic is like the Jenna Zoe, who else? I don't even know the names of these people, so I'm going to have to get filled in on this. But there's a huge kerfluffle on Instagram, and we're going to get to it. But the general overarching theme is just that it's very juicy. The overarching theme is really that there are people teaching wrong HD, and then there's people getting mad about it, and that is really the fundamental thing. And there is part of it that's like,
right and what is wrong?
well, it's being outraged about outrage. It
What
doesn't
is
really
right
help
and what is
anything because
left?
that's just like being
is right
addicted
and
to
what
road
is left?
rage. Like, what did you say? What was it?
No, never mind. No,
What did you say? You gotta.
I just said what is right and what is left because she's like, what is right and what is left.
Oh, okay, I see. Because of the variable way. Well, as far as I know, the anger is about not even anger. I don't think anyone's really angry, I don't really know. It seems to me that some people maybe are actually getting hurt by other people who are kind of just laughing about it. But I don't really know. I haven't seen too much about. I don't even know what's going on, other than there is a thing about the lower right variable, i.e., view, or also called perspective. It kind of was called either of those, and that is the personality external, which is kind of what we're here to see, and that color, or not even color, just that tonal fixing, that variable is supposed to be how you quote unquote manifest. And the term manifest, I take it, is being used in the very conventional sense of like your vision for your future of being rich and having boats and whatever,
The
It's
secret.
the secret style of manifestation, which is the 7-center path. It's one of the 16 ways. Now these ways work. This is what I mean. These ways work, but you end up being an archetype, and you end up being a transpersonal figure. You can even be famous. I had a class with Stephanie Germanota. It's really interesting that she was into Jung, and she had some awareness of how she even said at one point, I am a figure of the transpersonal. And I was warning her the exact same way. I'm gate of caution, 12. I'm always say, be careful, the danger. I love that about Foucault. He must have been a 12. He said, I don't care about right or wrong. I care about safe and dangerous. And that's the real adult thing to care about, because you're caring so much about right and wrong. You're putting people in danger. He was a real humanist. It's a difference, right? And so caution, and so the caution of following these personality paths. There's 16 of them. Maybe one person wants to go study some martial art and just devote the next 20 years of their life. I met a guy like that who would always walk around. He called himself G Money. G Money's in his 50s. He used to run a dojo in Seattle. He'd had his own path, and he'd done some Buddhist stuff. And people are on their paths, and they do find things out, and they do end up places. But the issue is that on the one hand, the outer authority is limited because really we are here to share with each other our differentiated outer authority, our unique opinions, our unique ideas, and all this stuff. And his was different, was a little bit limited because he got in the trap that a lot of the personality ones get into, which is the white hats doing black work, where they preach what is really easy for them and really hard for or impossible for other people. And you have the defined ego saying, just do it, put your mind to it.
Wait, what was that saying that you said?
So Ra calls it white hats doing black work because
White
hats
hats
are
doing
because
black
they're
work,
all
okay.
wearing white hats. They're all nurses and doctors and healers and helpers, and you hire them and they're meaning their best intentions, but they have a defined ego. So they say, what worked for me was this, and they have a defined solar plexus. They say, I got real with myself. Well, that's, you can't just tell an undefined solar plexus to get real with themselves because their mind tries to do it, and then their mind, they don't know how. They don't know that the getting real with themselves will happen naturally the more they wait and follow something else, even the movement of life itself. A big part of strategy and authority, for all the fancy words, is just waiting for something else to happen and waiting for the right trajectory of events or the right sequence of events, where you really start to feel, the more you practice it, you start to feel like you're living in a movie, and you start to almost see movies as, and the cinematic quality as, examples of how you're actually supposed to be in the world, because you actually are supposed to walk around and go, and not, necessarily go, hey, by the way, I'm trying to get blah, blah, blah. That's what the world is doing, though. They're walking around. And then movies lampoon it. They lampoon the not self all the time. And they have the person come up rapping on the window and being annoying and initiating. And then they have the cool person who sits there and doesn't respond until they do respond. The generator loses all their power the moment they respond. The moment they initiate. They respond too early, is what I was trying to think. Like the moment they're just like immediately, they react. They go, oh, what's this? Oh, I'm going to now play the piano, blah, 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 blah. And they've lost all their power. But if they sit there and don't say anything, the aura actually communicates where they're at, and they can synchronize with people and connect with people and have these auric communications as generators. It's really interesting and almost kind of sad to me when I realized how manifestors can feel left out of that, because I can just be like feeling so much of the other generators in my field. Like, we are just such a pod. And I've heard from manifestors, actually from C, that it would be more like having the intense eye contact or some sort of something special is needed to really break through the defense. But we're just like sponges. What defense? What defense? We're just like all a puddle. It's like, I think cuddle puddles are for generators. If there's a shirt, bedtime is for projectors. Cuddle puddles are for generators. Because we're just all, our auras are cuddle puddles.
I love that.
But yeah, no, that's, sorry. I grew up in the 90s. I was a teenager in the 90s, or going to raves.
Yes.
But so the thing is, though, you can have all these experiences and go through all of these personality journeys of the 16 different, fundamentally different journeys. You really can't do all of them in a single lifetime even. But that's why, you really are only supposed to be doing one. But the one that I think what Ra's are encouraging people to do is kind of to weird it in the sense of like, yeah, I can be there's different versions of each of it. Like, let's imagine Jesus. His version of communicating normally is simply to say, obey my outer authority, or respect those who practice nonviolence, because nonviolence is its own strategy, taking the high road, turning your nose up and saying, I'm nonviolent, I'm nonviolent, I'm nonviolent, I'm not, you can see that it's a strategy. These are all strategies. That's where they're rooted in. But there's a non-strategic, or even just a nine-centered, healthily strategic version that you could imagine, where you could say, okay, how does it change? I love doing this kind of game, trying to think of what the nine-centered version of it would be. Oftentimes, it would be that instead of trying to, heal everybody else, I like with this whole cross of healing thing, it's more about focusing on my own, being an example instead of going around telling everybody, I'm nonviolent, look at me, look how, and how good I am. And, it's a little bit, it's more like, but even that's not fully nine-centered. If I think about what's at the core of the nine-centered, it's about cooperation, it's about getting along, it's about communication, and it's about differentiation, which is really not trying to force people to be different than who they are, or not accidentally conditioning them, the white hats doing black work, who are defined sacral, and they're saying, you just need to wake up early, and you just need to work harder, you're not working hard enough, and you're a projector. And it's like, no, they're doing it because that's what
I
works
really
for them.
wanted to be like that. I really did.
We all want to.
It's more aware.
Yeah. What is it?
More aware. Especially of the subtleties of like feeling of energetic shifts.
It's very
things
nine-centered.
like that.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I haven't read the 64 Material Ways book, but I heard the lectures. But I remember talking about some of the stuff where everyone's kind of talking about it now these days, about how head and heart are the two fundamental money-making things. Not head, ajna rather. But really and this is actually an interesting point. We were just hanging out with...
the head was.
Maybe it is head. Yeah, actually, I guess so, because that's the least defined. Ajna has more definition because it has definition from both sides. So these least...
It's like 73%.
The least definition gets the most people, and it builds on itself because they're all amplifying it, so it gets louder than everything else.
Selling inspiration.
So, yeah, well, and then what was interesting is that electricity is really allowed. That's been the thing that emerged right around the time of the nine-centered, and so on. But there was an interesting point from James Alexander as well, which is that the fifth line is all about the ajna in the throat, and that it really is about that sort of, or maybe even head also. I don't know if he said head and throat or ajna throat. I wrote down head, but I think he might have, I might have misheard. But in any case, these kinds of languages that we're developing together, just to finish up this topic, and I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on it. These languages are fundamentally about embracing difference, being able to verbalize difference, verbalize distinction, basically, what does make this distinct from that. And really just, I think it's about honoring the correct trajectories of different people, which really means, like, if you start practicing this stuff, you do get, the sad part of it is you do get some of the so-called manifestation things where, like, you're a generator, you manifest, quote unquote, I don't use that term, we don't use it, it's not the same word in human design, which refers more to the throat, taking action. As generators, we don't manifest. As generators, we attract or whatever. But then people talk about law of attraction and they say that's manifestation. Well, and also we build up and 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 have an outlet. I have a 34 and finally a 20 comes along, and then I manifest and I'm able to get it out in the world. And so we do, but we're responding to that 20. We're not initiating and trying to push it and trying to be the 20, with my hanging 34. That is the difference. And
don't obsess over it.
Yeah, and then if you do have a 34-20, you're obeying the law. It's like even almost harder in some ways if you're a 34-20, because then you have this thing that does have so much energy to continually act in the world. 34-20s are constantly taking action in the world. And yet, they're also designed to wait to respond, meaning that their ability to take action is really supposed to leap into action after response in some way. So, not necessarily leap into action. I'm an action tone, so I always think of it in my terms. But I don't want to do the black work here. But no, seriously, because what's easy for me, that's how I do it. I'm an action person. I leap into action. But yeah, the main idea for me though is just what people talk about as manifestation. Maybe they're just using a word that means something different to human design people, and you can actually be a little bit nicer to the Karen Curry Parkers of the world who are 4/6s, where she's a fourth line.
She's a 4/6.
Yeah, and see, I really like her. She's so friendly. She's so now. But the thing is,
I can't listen to her though.
Well, I wouldn't go to her for the deeper understandings because I haven't. But I do subscribe to her, and I like her Instagram because I like what she externalizes. She externalizes a lot of positivity, and it does make a difference externalizing positivity. What's funny is Rod talks about how people say, just like fake it till you make it and put out what you put out in the world is what you get back and all this stuff. And he's like, that's true for fourth line. For the three of you, it's true. For me and Mike, we have a different role. Mike is going to be struggling not to be a hypocrite, which a lot of sixth lines struggle with, because people just trust them to do the right thing. Nobody's keeping them to do the right thing except themselves. They are the only person that's accountable.
We can get away with it.
They can get away with anything. Nobody is going to keep them accountable. And so, like I was saying, the 7-centered version is the hypocrite. Life's over at 30. Even if you do live to an old age, you're not. It's not the same. It's like you're over because you're.
Because those are your bonus years at that point.
Yeah,
they really
exactly.
are. You're guaranteed 30 years of life. So then
you
it's
end
like
life as a hypocrite. You end life saying, "Everybody do this. Now I'm gonna go retire."
Yeah. But now I have to wait till I'm 82 to live like that, eh? Well, I can get to be a hypocrite when in my bonus years, scot free. Otherwise, it's gonna catch up with me.
That's basically how it works. Okay. Well, I do want to mention this guy, Yes Cavieri. 13 hours ago he posted this. So the thing that I had a problem with him about was that he was just saying straight up wrong things. And if anyone has to go, by the way, this was going to be like 20 minutes, but it's definitely going longer. So
what is
this is still hot topic. Hot topic of wrong information. But he was just posting straight up wrong information. I mean, wrong information at a different level than Jenna Zoe, where she's saying manifest through your variable. That's like okay, that's like her thing. This is like wrong. Like this
Is
is like
that,
taking.
does that come from Jen and Zoe, the manifestation thing?
It comes from the Expanders. Who is she? I can't
The
remember her name.
expander. Okay.
Yeah, it's the manifestation artist. I can't remember her name right now.
Manifestation
They
artist.
work together
expander.
though, and they like that's.
Okay. So, but this
Keeper.
has become kind of meme. I think it's a little mean spirited. I don't really get involved in that, but you know, I'm also a fifth line, and it's like sixth line stays out of it. The fifth line gets involved when it needs to get involved, and I haven't needed to get involved. But if I need to get involved, and you know, best
You're getting involved right now by talking about it.
well, I'm just saying, if I need to get involved and make a stand on it, I will. But I'm not taking. I mean, I'm getting involved only to say that. Don't pick on the fourth line's externalizing, because their form of manifestation is basically 1/3 of people out there faking it and putting out positive vibes and just. Now the thing is, there's so many. It's the devil's in the details, because if you have undefined solar plexus, I'm not telling you to fake your emotional thing and run away from truth. It's like we have to look at the context here, and I think in context, a lot of these people might be saying something that is actually, to me, I mean, safety versus danger. What's more damaging? What's dangerous? And so on. Richard Mason, far more dangerous. He's a manifestor. He had a huge impact. This stuff doesn't have a huge impact. This stuff is fine. These people are going to do this stuff anyway. They're just like hanging out with each other. These are like conferences for rich people to network. Like this is like, let them do that, you know. But Yuri, for instance, Yuri Yeskov, he's a Russian HD guy, and I am interested in the sort of figureheads of different regional, who have access to certain regions of the world and that I don't have access to, or other people that, you know, don't have access to in my HD network. And he does, and he's done thousands of readings, thousands really. And he was saying really wrong information. He's getting better,
Can
but
you give an example?
yeah. So here's the wrong information. So he was saying that 4629 is logical, and that's why it needs to be repetitive.
What?
Yeah, it's not logic. It's abstract.
What?
So this is wrong in a
This
different
seems
way.
fundamental.
And then he was also saying that you make money as a 4629 by staying with things. Now that is true, succeeding where others fail and sticking through it. But he was making it out to be, and he actually was saying it's because it goes up. He didn't know about the switch in the.
What?
Well, how they're weirdly switched.
little
he
helix?
had just seen the other ones and just drawn. So he's a smart guy, but he's like making too many assumptions and going too fast for his fame. And this is a fifth line problem. They don't do their first line homework. He's a 5'1", 46'5", with 4629, like me. He's a Russian me, you know. So he's a Russian Jesus who's going around as the savior, and he's externalizing savior. And everyone's coming to him, and he's making a good amount of money on it. But he's not necessarily having a solid foundation in it. Yeah. And this is my constant question.
Here too.
Do I have a... Oh, you're talking
Explained
about
in one graphic what the problem.
Oh, beautiful. Let's do that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It might be blurry.
What's that?
Might be
Can you make
blurry.
sure they can see it?
Oh, yeah. This is really different. We're passing around your phone.
He was talking about the switch at the pressure centers where
Right.
the streams cross. Yeah. At the head and at the
I
root.
was too low. I gotta go a little higher. There. I don't know. Yeah, I gotta change over the tab if I'm gonna see if it actually works. Oh, there it is. Oops. Yeah, so this is the different circuitry. Wow. Oh, we've had 12 concurrent viewers. Thanks everybody. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This is great. We've had some really good times today. Well, you know, we can always save. We're almost done with the hot
great.
topic.
This is a really good topic to discuss. I just thought of a really good topic we should discuss, but it's very timely.
What is it?
Okay, wait. Let's do it. Let's change the
Costumes,
topic.
like,
Let's do
open or
it.
defined centers. Stereotypical costumes since Halloween's coming up.
Oh, what's the topic?
I just a very last minute topic, but I just was wondering if there was any, since Halloween's coming up and everyone's thinking about costumes, like, are there certain costumes that are typical of like defined or open centers? Like,
Well, the undefined throat are definitely going to do the ones trying to get all the attention. And the undefined solar plexus are probably going to be the ones trying to be really sexy and over the top, slutty Halloween. That's, I mean, and I say that in a gender neutral way, non-specific way. Because they're the ones that are trying so hard to be what they're not, which is to be the exciting one, to be the sexy one, to be the appealing one, which is all part of the
I
undefined
don't
solar.
think about it at all.
Define so, Alexis.
I said I don't think about costumes at all.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Like maybe it's my open head ajna, and just like not thinking about things I don't need to think about anymore.
Well, there's a lot of reasons you might be thinking about costumes. I have been thinking about them some, and a number of reasons for me are my 4629 is fully conscious, and so it is always kind of thinking about what experiences there are, and I love just being in different costumes. Like I went as a priest one year, actually a number of years, but I went as a priest in particular one year. It was so much fun, and I met a pope, and he was at the Owl Wolf, and he was there, and I was there. We have a photo of us. We're shaking hands. We're both smoking cigarettes. We have cigarettes in our mouth. We're shaking hands as a priest and a pope. It's really fun. Like you to embody. I loved one of my favorite things to do in Seattle for year after year after year in Fremont was to go up to my roof and watch the Fremont Solstice Parade and oftentimes take mushrooms. And I remember being on and seeing these people in the parade, and they were all the naked bicyclists, and they're like avatars. They're body painted, and they're basically these avatars who they kind of decided to embody. And at that point I did realize we all do. I saw then why people get tattoos. I understood why people, similar to an experience I had to my friend Kathy Alley, who passed away, and when she got diagnosed with cancer, she started getting these tattoos, and it's like there is this interesting relation between permanence and impermanence with the costume and the form. And of course the costume is an impermanent form. It's like a temporary tattoo, but it still is interesting. It raises questions of, in some sense, the costumes you've chosen over your life are permanent. And that trail of costumes are the tattoo of your life. And so, nevertheless, you are stuck with the decisions you have made and the costumes you've chosen. And so sitting there, having this sort of psychedelic experience watching the parade, seeing really hundreds, from when I was younger as a kid, only a few people would be naked bicyclists. For those who don't know, this is the Fremont Solstice Parade, where people do full body paint, like crazy body paint. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles naked, but they're always naked in their body, or wearing like little Speedos or something, and then full body paint. And it's really, really cool. It's just such an event. People go all out, and just what they've chosen to externalize. Even going back to the previous topic of just externalization, where 1/3 of people carry a fourth line, and just realizing that the costume is the externalization in some sense. It is what you're putting out there in the world. And there's a great line in that George Saunders short story, Simplica Girl Diaries, where he says, do I want my family to remind me to only think of me as stressed, angry guy with bad car, constantly, because like he was having this sort of negative mental attitude, and he starts to talk himself up out of it. Now, George Saunders also is a genius for parodying that positive mental attitude. He also has this great essay which is written as a keep positive. If you just stay positive for things, and you can see how it is a caricature to just say that all you need to do is externalize positive mental attitude, change your life. That's really, really privileged, and really, can even be racist. It can have all sorts of problems with telling somebody to just change their attitude. But I don't also think that necessarily that's what the Genezoes of the world are doing. I think they might just be saying what works for them, and what worked for them was externalizing, and maybe they have a bunch of fourth lines. I don't know. I haven't looked into it enough to really see. But I don't know the danger, and I'm always looking for the danger.
She's a 2-4.
Oh, 2-4, yeah. But we kind of moved on from that topic anyway. We're not going to go back to hot topic again. Do I have to turn on the light?
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm just saying your assessment of a fourth line was correct.
My assessment of fourth line is correct.
Oh yeah, that she was indeed a fourth line. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, I mean that's a 1 in 3 chance. 1 in 3 people.
I'm correct.
Okay, so pod layer.
Oh.
What is it?
I added that last minute. I don't know. I had to ask a friend about it.
Alternate design? Is that what this is?
It's an offshoot. No one knows about it. Yeah.
Okay, well that must be a mystery.
Because I'll read their statement, I guess.
Yeah, read the statement.
Okay. So pod layer. A pithy and punchy introduction to the principles of pod layer theory. Okay. What is the purpose of this site? This site is dedicated to teaching the world about the theory and philosophy of pod layer, the Rosetta Stone of our human soul. Our work involves researching and collecting data on the phenomenon of innate cognitive configurations in humans, then presenting this game-changing evidence and its implication to the public. Why is this a big deal? Pod layer methodology reads a person's innate nature, what we call their mojo, with an accuracy never before possible, which allows humans to know themselves in truly unprecedented ways, ending the debate on whether or not people have qualia and what it evolves.
Yeah, this is bizarre.
But it,
Rosetta Stone.
but it's rooted in human design, and it's just like, and when you get into the like little kind of graphics and things, you can kind of just like through isomorphism tell what they're drawing on to a degree, but also it becomes like excessively arcane. Whoa, cool.
Wow.
CGI faces.
Oh.
They're like little bandits.
I'm upset.
Yeah.
I'm upset.
Yeah.
It's of human design.
Well, anyway, we brought this up because of something else, though, right? The
Oh, the Sphinx Code.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
well, because and it is a continuation, basically, of the specific versus non-specific manifesting meme, in that it is the mind's appropriation of human design principles, basically giving the mind a new way to tinker with control over its life through what is supposed to be a disruption of the mind's
Well, but it
control
still
over
might
life, right?
disrupt it by accident. I mean, there's so much irony in the world that these podlier freaks might figure something. Okay, sorry. Okay, active and
You're
passive.
one of those guys.
Yeah, is anybody commenting? Does anybody
Oh yeah, we'll see if there's any comments before we go to the next one. The next topic is active passive.
Well, but this thing was supposed to segue into the Sphinx Code thing.
Anastasia's
Oh yeah.
I must try that. Trying to heart it. I just end it. Hi, Anastasia. We're all thinking of you. We have your mezcal here, eagerly awaiting human design winter respite. She sent.
First, no.
Did you see
I saw
it?
it,
Did
yeah,
you see
I
it?
saw
Okay,
it.
wait. I gotta bring it. Okay, keep talking about.
No.
Pod
It's
layer.
it's
It's
an
right
aside,
here.
isn't
I'm gonna
it?
show it. Keep talking about pod layer.
There's nothing to say.
What time is
Do you want to explain the Sphinx Code?
Yeah.
No, I listened to a podcast and I swear to God, I don't think they even knew what they were talking about either. Like, it didn't feel like it was such a clear system, and there's no way to like dive deep into it because it's still in the part of this creation, even though it's been around apparently for 12 years. But there's only 11 like descendants or I don't even know what they call them. There's 11 people who can read these things.
There's only 11 evangelists.
There's something
Some
crazy like that.
exclusive
Yeah,
club.
there's like, and it's always like it kind of feels. I'm just not sure.
Yay. Throw it over
So-
there.
But it's based
So
on
what
like
do
a
you
tarot
know?
archetype. So what
Okay.
I know is that
Okay.
it is something about the inner child also being able to view your masculine shadow and then your feminine shadow.
It sounds kind of Gene
Two
Keysy based on
separate.
what you've been saying.
Maybe, but they're like, oh, why isn't there a system of like formalization for reading the tarot through archetypes? And so this is what they've come up with. So it has to do with like the tarot, the energy of
Does
the
have
tarot.
archetypes in it. Like, that's
It
kind
does,
of the
yeah.
fundamental part of the tarot is the archetypes. Like,
100%, but they wanted to systemize it. And apparently, based on your birthday and how human design information is gathered, it's exactly the same. So whatever, I don't know exactly what the formula is by any means, but it comes out and then it's like the system of all these cards that are laid out. It looks like a tarot reading,
okay.
and it has all the cards. I think it's like only major arcana though, because that is the hero's journey. So wherever those lay have a certain meaning, but I try to go search mine and they're in process of building whatever that app is going to be.
Okay, so
Weird.
we can't do our own yet.
Unless you pay $500 to get a reading.
Wait, so it was rooted in human design or just compatible with human design?
It was on I heard about this from a human design podcast, and apparently it is compatible with human design in the sense that human design gives you the structure and strategy to live your life, where this is like the higher level of like the foundation of like who you are and how if you are acting in your not self, you understand the masculine version and the feminine version of what that means. Is my
mostly,
perception
yeah,
of what I
I've never
learned.
really heard someone describe the shadow as being masculine or feminine. Like, I thought
Yeah,
the
you're supposed to
shadow just
decouple
was,
it from
like,
it. I mean,
Yeah,
essence of it.
But-
How the shadow shows up in a feminine orientation, how the shadow shows up in
I mean,
a masculine
there could be a
orientation.
tremendous
And
value.
the inner child
yeah.
is like who you are at your core, but these are the challenges that you will face.
I have no doubt that there's some value there, but it's kind of a similar reaction also to what Ross said about the experiential, is that there's nearly infinite money poured into the experiential. And so if you tell somebody to go sit on top of a mountain, they'll sit on top of the mountain. And you tell them to say something, they'll say it, the mantra, whatever. I mean, these are experiences. And it's weird because it oftentimes pretends to be logic, and it appears to be logic. And that's how I get with a lot of, like Richard Rudd, where he goes, the three great spiritual teachers of humanity were Buddha, Jesus, and Hermes Trismegistus.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, where does he pull these things out of? But, where does he make these things up from? Because he's just creating these on a fly little experiences of having a narrative arc. And that's all an experience is. It's a narrative arc. It's a set of bullet points which have connective tissue, and you get something out of it. You get having had the experience, and then you can look back on the experience and see at different times, and maybe even early on you go, I think that was a scam, and later you go, wow, really, that experience did actually change me. That was what I needed. That was the experience that changed my perspective.
I do feel I was just gonna say, I do feel like there's something to this. I don't know what it is yet, but it doesn't. It feels exactly how the whole human design thing was channeled. Like, we've channeled it. I'm like, okay, when is that actually gonna be like? Were you guys just thinking of this, like? I don't know.
Well,
Sometimes when people say they've channeled something, it's like, is it true or is it not?
I mean, they're selling an experience, and if you have a commentary.
I was just gonna say that maybe all these people who are selling it have the 25, because that's the gate of the priest and the con artist, and they all have that. Not to say that they're all con artists, because like you said, they do changing your situation does give one a new perspective if you're looking for something. If you have something, if you're open to it, if you're seeking, and you get cross paths with any of these people, even if you get something different out of it than what they're intending, you still got something out of it. I do agree with you on that. But I just mean that not everybody could have the ability to lead people off on this other mountain, I think we were talking a little bit last time.
To make that compelling, to make the mantra compelling, or to make
it be yes, this is the happy valley we're living in right now, but over in that valley, there's something better. And so not everyone has that. So I think it does go back to human design that certain aspects of people's design make them more capable of saying this.
Well, and they can be tour guides, really. I mean, a lot of swamis are just tour guides of experiences, and that's and there's nothing wrong with a tour guide, a guided tour of a certain experiential thing. I'm just saying that I signed up for the Gene Keys tour. I did at the Imagine Festival many years ago. It was free, so I didn't have to pay anything. But I hung out with all these Gene Keys people, the whole Northwest Gene Keys cadre of tech startup people and Burning Man people, but cool, cool people, but also just there's this is very popular in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. Gene Keys is not human design. It should tell you something about that culture. And one of the reasons I think it's so popular is because it does have, they had a lot of fun, but it was just an experience. And so I had the experience of having a lot of fun with them while they were singing and dancing and making songs. And that's the thing is, if you meet any of these people, you will get a song and a dance, and a song and a dance makes you feel good. And you go away having had the song and the dance, and you might even get some food out of it or some snacks or whatever. And at the end of the day, that's what everybody's getting. They're getting the experience of it, particularly in a live venue, particularly in a, and I love that as a 2946, I love the compressed experience of the, people are willing to pay way more money for experience than for logic. People will pay more for a stand-up comedian than for a tutor,
At the base of all of that, though, is connection with other people. It's you can finally be in one space where it's connecting everything.
Well, connection is what's so important, and it's tragic that the same words can mean so many different things and that we just don't have better words to describe it, because there are so many relationship coaches who are single definition who need to be learning a thing or two themselves from the split definitions in their lives. And there are so many, when you see the not self and how far it goes, and you start looking at some celebrities' charts, and then people ask, this ties back into the earlier conversation, well, why were they so successful and why did they touch your heart? And I've actually cried tears of joy and also kind of tragic seeing, someone like Kurt Cobain, who was able to touch so many people, but only through this self-immolation of becoming a transpersonal force that crushed him and losing his own quality of real human life. because he was just overwhelmed and self-destructed. I know I've been picking on Pisces tonight with David Foster Wallace, and now with I love my Pisces. Pisces are my favorite.
More identify with my Scorpio anyways lately. So.
Okay. Well, no, I don't. I'm just trying to say, the Pisces out there, be easy on yourself. Well, I think we're losing steam, but I do want to go a couple quick ones we have. Active and passive colors. This is just an interesting one. So, me and Mike and Jenny have been hanging out a lot with James Alexander the last few days, and it was so nice having him here. And one of the things, so many things he told us, and we had so many great conversations and threads about. But just one of them was the active versus passive colors, which he will be back in December. So, okay. And the active passive colors, which is something that I guess I just hadn't really thought about, was I thought about it with 2 and 6 and with 3 and 5. I hadn't thought of it with 1 and 4. But it's basically that the 2 is passive and the 6 is passive. Well, I guess the 4 is passive too, or maybe it's kind of a switch. I don't know if the 1 and 4 have some special quality to them. And then the 4 seems passive also. And then the 1, 3, 5, interestingly, are active in this scenario, which is a little bit interesting to me because in other ways I've heard Ra say, for instance, the first line is yin and the second line is beyond and so on. So it's interesting what level this is at. But if you think about just the level of motivation, as a signpost, this is what really clicked for me. Mike and myself are desire, and as desire people, we just, our signpost is when we click active, when we are engaged. And we're not necessarily always active. We're not always desire. Like, I am action tone. I'm sure if I were right variable, I'd have to get into a certain flow state to get into it, right? If I'm on the splenic binary, it's a different thing of kind of just continual slow burn. But being in the ajna binary, left variable, third tone action, and I just basically chill out and then I snap into action. Now, Jenny is hope, so she has a passive. And as a passive, when she's really freaking out saying, I have to do something, already a signpost. You don't even have to look for the guilt. Because her transference is guilt, her transference is active.
Okay.
Yours? What's yours again? Tell me. I should know by now.
I think I'm hope, yeah.
Okay, so for you, one of your signposts will be when you jump into, oh my God, I have to do something. For me, when I jump into, that's really good. That's like, I got to do something about this. I can't just sit here and do nothing about it. And I jump into it, right? For you, when you're like, oh my God, I got to jump into this, just take a step back and go, no. I'm supposed to be passive. And now I also don't want to conflate motivation with our, it's almost like motivation is what the mind will do if there's no resistance. I kind of think of reality as like, the mind gets to do whatever it wants within its playground, but if it tries to go beyond its boundary, that's initiating, because you have to change something to initiate. You have to contact someone, or you have to knock on a door, or you have to change the whatever. But within a certain room, I can be walking around the room all day long, just left to my own devices, and I'm not like, oh my God, I'm initiating walking over to look in the mirror. I'm not doing that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is when I'm in that state of just doing my own thing, that's when my motivation is strongest, because it is a mental thing and it goes away. That desire motivation goes away in the heat of the moment, where the sacral, for me, really is what I'm holding on to make it through that moment. And I don't know if everyone holds on to their definition in the way that I have, but I found that the defined life force, and I guess that gives reflectors nothing to hold on to in an interestingly way, or to hold on to different branches at different times of the cycle. But yeah, and ever evolving, right, ever changing. But for me, I really, really hold on to that definition, and I mean that in the sense of in a time of great conflict where I have undefined solar plexus that wants to explode, undefined ego wants to counter threaten, and somebody gets in my face and they have defined ego and defined solar plexus, which has happened a number of times, and says, hey, whatever, I was trying to buy something from one of our friends, now we're fine, but he threw it on the ground and was like, pick it up, that kind of stuff. And I don't go, oh my God, ego, I'm going to beat when I was younger, but I actually go into my sacral and I go, it's like a different experience of my body won't let me do the things I used to do. It wouldn't let me swing a punch if I wanted to. Not because my mind is trying to be this Jesus nonviolent person, and yet the sacral is almost making sure, it's kind of like they work together. The motivation is not your decision making. It's not. The motivation is what clicks in of the personality when it starts to describe what's going on in its life. So, like if you're describing it in terms of what you're invested in and hope and what you're hoping the future will bring and what you think is worth, and you're saying, it's been rough this last few months, but it's changing. It's going to get better. And if you're talking in those terms, that's great, because that means that you're talking in terms of what's going to get better, what's going to get worse, what's going to change, what's not going to change. When you're talking in terms of, oh my God, I got to do something. So that was just so cool to see. And I've seen it with so the 6 and the 3 for sure. I've seen that. And then the 4 and the 1 are an interesting one. The 4 transfers to everything all the time. This is need, fear. I guess I haven't observed that one as much, and that's why it's a little bit more of a curious one for me.
Well, the fear thing is like figuring out how you're going to do something, being pragmatic. What don't you know? Clearing up your blind spots,
active.
being active in your investigation.
Okay.
And then the 4 is kind of like, well, I'm just going to prioritize in a way, sort of like whatever. It's restful in a weird way. It's like this is needed. First thing, I don't have to know
directing. Yeah, it's directing at the higher level and doesn't care how it's done. It's almost the 4th line is directing too. It's saying, I don't know how they build the things. I'm just selling them.
Yep, exactly.
So,
yeah.
So that's a good point. That's the passive
working with whatever's in front of you, like reclining into what is you can tell is needed without having to do research about what is more needed than something else. You're not having to do any comparison or whatever. You're just sort of like treating what is obvious.
Yeah. Well,
which is kind of hands off in a way, right? Because it's just like, well, before anything happens, I have to put my shoes on. So I need to put my shoes on,
Right.
This is our last little topic I just wanted for the day, and then we're off. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Color transference on the design side is controversial, and people don't necessarily agree about what that is. Color transference, just having fun with it.
Hot topic?
Hot topic! Hot topic. Color transference on the design side. Watch out.
This one is not so juicy.
No, this one's... Well, people do disagree about it. So, I guess one of the things is, do you transfer, like Mark Germain says you transfer to your other variable, and then other people say you transfer to the color. People say you transfer to the variable first, then the color. Like you transfer to nervous before you go out of nervous to single eating. But what Ra would say for us being 4th color is that the 4th color is actually meant to be part of everything, and that actually we will just be eating single ingredients. Who cares as long as it's calm? We will be getting stuck on eating the same meal every day. Who cares because it's calm? Or, that's because we're calm eaters. Nervous people need to do the opposite, of course, and need to be like, getting really a lot of energy.
What transfers is the concern, putting that forward. But like, instead of taking care of the calm, taking care of the single ingredient or thing as a solution to your situation.
I guess our transference would transfer to everything, so we're not really the best example because the 4th color transfers to all of them. So there were periods of time in my life where I did work really late and then get food late at night and then sleep on my food and get stuck in nighttime. And there were times in my life and so on. And the thing is, a lot of those times were great and I was actually fine. And then other times would really mess me up because I was in a really stressful environment and eating around people and all this stuff. And so it's basically... I got the key to it when I learned about the calm, nervous thing. But I don't think that's the best example. I think taking a 1st color person actually is a better example because they're one that doesn't transfer all the time. It only transfers when it's wrong. And when it's wrong, they want the romantic candlelight dinner and the nice music and don't eat before, slap the hand of the person trying to eat before they sit down at the table, and they want to all have either everybody all together having a lot of jovial conversation, or they want to have their... time where it's like everything's calm. It's like either the calm or the nervous. It's going to get fixed on, or they're going to get fixed on going out to eat to restaurants, 1st color people, 1st color, determination, before they're into human design. Because the 1 and the 4, they're the transference. And when you're living your design, it really does lock in and it stops transferring. It goes to the right way. It's kind of like you have your natural song. That's the way Ra put it. It's like 1st color people are boom, 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 and 2nd color are do, 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 and the 3rd color are you get to the 4th color, they don't have a natural song. And this is what Ra says is so weird about the 4th color and the body side, is that you don't have a natural body. Your body changes shapes and sizes throughout your life many times, many ways. It's like those actors who will radically transform themselves for a role. So it is interesting to see the role of the 4th color there. But each of these has their own fundamental, is the kind of musical term for it, which is the root, and then it has the octave, and the octave is the transference. And I do think there's color transference on the design side, and I do think it goes away when you live your design. And I don't know if there's any more comments. Yeah, but we'll talk about it for a moment so we can all be together for the end. But we're losing them.
There's one more section.
No, I just was about to finish, but then Jenny walked out, and I wanted to say, well, we're done, but I can't do it without her here. So we'll just talk about color transference. Okay, so the other part of it is that it might be true that the other side of your, I mean, I can't see that single ingredient people would be alternating ingredients first before figuring out their single ingredient. You know what I mean? Left variable. That doesn't make sense to me. I see them focusing on either going out to restaurants or, I mean, really the two sides of it, because people explore both sides of the calm and the nervous, which are the two sides of the fourth color, the transference. Going out to restaurants and also having nice candlelit dinners at home. And then for the second color people, they're really supposed to be eating local, same thing every day, getting adjusted to the food. Their dietary regimen is so limited and restricted. And what they're doing is they actually, a lot of them are really into sound healing and sound arts and 5 stuff and creating the right sonic environment, which sounds weird, but I've heard people say that they need the right sonic environment. And I think they can also get hooked on restaurants, I mean, you see why restaurants are so popular, because they give the nervous, they give the high sound. You know, there's a lot of people out there that are transferring to that. And then finally, for the third color and its transference, so those are the thirst folks out there, and I think a lot of them are in their transference really trying to just eat on a restricted diet, if only eating during the day or only eating at night. You know, I mean, mostly during the day, I guess. But. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We are done for that's it. Hot topic. Oh no. All right.
Hot topic of leaving.
All right, Lindsay, Amber, Jenny, Mike, everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Everyone who's watching, and let's see.
There's some more action.
Joyful Projector, our mojo.
Our friend is here.
LOL, y'all, quite the shout out. All right, Nets 3-5 Splenic Projector. Hey, looking forward to doing the reading. Nets, I'll be. It'll be very soon here. I wonder if people change the wording and modify things to be different in order to avoid copyright infringement. Yeah, it's sad if that's the case. They might justify it to themselves that way, but I wonder if a deeper motivation might be that they're like fourth base, where they often need to interpret things on their own. But I mean, because you can't really copyright a lot of it. Anastasia, that's super interesting about singles learning from splits. Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, and triples do too, and maybe even I don't know how the quads work it out, but yeah, and then of course, you know, even if you have no definition, don't want to leave out the reflectors. We're all learning from the splits. We're learning from the splits how to have relationships and how to make relationships work. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Yeah, Robert coming. Thanks, guys. Alexis Oliver, thank you. Thank you both. Robert says, I always heard from Rod that the design doesn't transfer. Yeah, so that's one of the things, is that's one of the older kind of ideas. And he says, but I think what he actually later corrected is he says the design doesn't transfer once you enter into the experiment. It locks. And that's why your body starts to feel so good. And that's why the mind starts to go, wait, there's something to this, because I'm no longer at odds with myself. And there's like, you can almost see people, it's like if they're driving a car and they're like not comfortable in it or something, or they're playing an instrument and they're jerky with it, compared to someone who, this is what I as a fifth line, I can say thank you to all of the second lines. We have 3 tonight, who you know, are so comfortable in your skin, because that's what the second line is. Is one of its great gifts. Is just, and it really helps me feel comfortable in my skin, because as a first line unconscious, certainly not.
Just think about how many people stumble into their correct diet versus how many stumble into their correct transference without human design, you know? The likelihood of discovering your correct diet is so much higher.
Oh, for sure.
Anastasia says, so amazing, love it. Fire comments. Yeah, it's a fun group. Well, maybe we'll do this again. This was a huge success, and maybe we'll have to see. So thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Okay. All right. That's from Santa Fe. See you on December. Yeah. All right.